Good morning, and welcome to The Global Current. I'm Joshua Siegel.
And I'm Megan Ferguson.
In news, Zika virus outbreak. Boko Haram attack in Nigeria. In analysis, ISIS in Libya.
Zika virus and its impact on the Summer Olympics.
And The Global Current sits down with Dr. Philip Kayal to discuss the recent premiere of his documentary, 1001 Journeys, The Arab American Experience. Thanks for tuning in, and enjoy the show. First, Morgan Mount reports on the emerging Zika virus in the Americas.
Outbreaks of the Zika virus, a mosquito-borne virus first identified in the Zika forest in Uganda in 1947, have flared up in Africa, Asia, the Pacific, and the Americas. In May 2015, Brazilian public health authorities confirmed the transmission of the Zika virus into Brazil. To date, 25 nations in the Americas are infected with the virus. According to the Centers for Disease Control, infected Andes mosquitoes transmit the virus to humans through their bite. Common symptoms include mild fever and skin rash, usually accompanied by muscle or joint pain. The incubation period is unknown, and symptoms can last anywhere from several days to a week. Though severe illness requiring hospitalization and death are rare, no medications or vaccines capable of treating Zika infections exist. On February 1st, the World Health Organization declared the virus and its suspected connection to birth defects an international health emergency, signifying the seriousness of the outbreak. The main concern is the possible link between the virus and microcephaly, a birth defect that causes babies to be born with abnormally small heads and, in most cases, damaged brains. Cases of microcephaly are rapidly increasing in Brazil, but the link is not scientifically proven. Dr. Margaret Chan, Director General of the WHO, stated that increasing evidence linking the Zika virus and microcephaly is sufficient enough to call an emergency and to urge a coordinated international response.
All agree on the urgent need to coordinate international efforts to investigate and understand this relationship better. Members of the committee agree that the situation meets the conditions for a public health emergency of international concern.
Specialists in Brazil, Colombia, and El Salvador are researching the effects of Zika on pregnant women. According to Reuters, Brazil's health minister, Marcelo Castro, reported that the Zika virus outbreak may be more serious than projected initially because 80% of the people infected by Zika show no symptoms. However, improved testing and mandatory reporting should allow Brazil to better handle the health crisis. Brazilian biomedical research centers are working with their U.S. counterparts to try to find a Zika vaccine. Meanwhile, Brazilian authorities estimate up to 1 million Brazilians are infected with Zika, and a WHO scientist estimates 3 to 4 million Zika infections in the Americas over the next year. This is Morgan Mount for The Global Current.
Marissa Hutton reports on Boko Haram in Nigeria.
Armed militants of Boko Haram killed dozens of residents of the Dolori village in Nigeria on Saturday, reports the BBC. The gunmen opened fire and set flame to homes in the village located in the northern Borno state, relief workers said. After the smoke had cleared, nearly 65 people were dead and 136 people were injured, according to the Nigerian National Emergency Management Agency's social media accounts. However, other sources estimate higher death counts. Haruna Mashila, the Borno State Health Commissioner, stated that 85 people were killed, 59 were injured, and 16 are missing. Nigerian National Emergency Management Chief Muhammad Kanar reported that the Boko Haram attackers kidnapped an unknown number of women. Boko Haram has terrorized the Nigerian north for years with the goal of implementing strict Sharia law across the country. This goal has reinforced the existing religious divide in the country between southern Christians and northern Muslims. In 2014, Boko Haram usurped ISIS's standing as the world's deadliest terrorist organization on the Global Terrorism Index, according to the BBC. Boko Haram is responsible for over 6,000 deaths during 2014 alone. The militant group consistently assassinates religious and political leaders, bombs churches and mosques, and kidnaps women and children in its attempts to forcibly spread its ideology that leaves no segment of society unaffected. Residents of Dolori who escaped to the bush heard Nigerian soldiers fighting the militants as they slept outside, paralyzed in fright. According to the Associated Press, survivors report that children were burned alive as militants torched homes and detonated suicide vests. Dolori, the largest camp for individuals displaced by Boko Haram's violent acts in the country, accommodates at least 20,000 people. For the Global Current, I'm Marissa Hutton.
And now an analysis. Karina Hendren discusses the impact of Zika virus outbreak on Summer Olympics in Rio de Janeiro.
In recent months, the mass spread of the Zika virus has gained worldwide attention. According to the Center for Disease Control and Prevention, the Zika virus spreads via mosquito bites. The symptoms of the virus are fever, rash, joint pain, and conjunctivitis. Time magazine reports that Brazilian doctors recently began attributing the Zika virus to the birth of babies with microcephaly, a condition in which the baby is born with an abnormally small head and brain development issues. The BBC reports that the World Health Organization Director General Margaret Chan has declared an international public health emergency. She had this and more to say about the outbreak heard here.
A coordinated international response is needed to minimize the threat in affected countries and reduce the risk of further international spread.
The WHO has also categorized Zika with the same amount of concern as the Ebola outbreak. According to CNN, the Zika virus can be traced back to the Zika forest in Uganda. Alexander Haddow and George Dick, who were in Uganda studying the yellow fever virus, first identified the Zika virus in 1947. However, at the time, researchers believed that the disease only affected monkeys and did not view it as a threat. Julius Lutwama, lead researcher at the Uganda Virus Research Institute, stated, "It was never viewed with importance. No one is interested in making a vaccine for a virus that only causes mild symptoms." Brazil is one of the countries at the forefront of the Zika outbreak. According to the BBC, Brazil has reported around 4,000 cases of microcephaly since October, compared to the usual 150 cases per year. The Wall Street Journal reports that there could be about 1.5 million Brazilians affected with the virus. Brazil's top health officials stated that the Zika outbreak is worse than expected because most cases show little to no symptoms. The New York Times reports that the United States and Brazil are working together on a vaccine. Vaccinations for the Zika virus would prove crucial to women in Zika-infected countries that plan to become pregnant. According to Reuters, the Brazilian government believes that the virus came to Brazil in 2014 with the influx of tourists attending the FIFA World Cup. Mercosur countries held an emergency meeting to discuss solutions for the outbreak as the cases of the Zika virus in South America continue to rise. The Zika outbreak comes at a time where Brazil is focusing their efforts on final preparations for the Summer Olympics, which are to be held this summer in Rio de Janeiro. President Dilma Rousseff, who has been battling low approval ratings and a tanking economy, has stated that there is no chance of the cancellation of the Olympics due to this health scare. Unfortunately, such statements from the Brazilian president may not make that much of a difference to those deciding whether to go to Brazil. For example, the Wall Street Journal highlighted Julianne Fan, a senior at George Mason University who canceled her 3-week trip to Brazil over concerns of the virus. Others, however, remain optimistic. Vinicia Lumert Silva, president of the Brazilian government tourism agency Embratur, does not believe that Zika will have a large impact on the Olympics, saying that he still expects 400,000 foreigners to come to Brazil for the Games in August. Jacques Wagner, Rousseff's chief of staff, stated that the Zika outbreak poses no threat to the Olympic athletes. However, he recommended that pregnant women avoid the Games because of the reported link between the virus and microcephaly. The outbreak of microcephaly is primarily in the northeastern region of Brazil, whereas the Olympic Games are to be held in Rio de Janeiro, which is along Brazil's southeastern coast. Brazilian officials are hoping that this, as well as August's cooler temperatures, will reassure athletes and visitors that Brazil does not prove as much of a threat as some may think. While Brazilian doctors are holding on to the fact that the Zika virus is only transmitted by blood, a new development in the United States is suggesting otherwise, posing yet another threat for the Olympic Games. According to CNN, the CDC is stating that the Zika virus can also be transmitted sexually after receiving test results showing Zika present in the blood of someone who had not traveled outside of the United States. When asked by CNN whether the American people should be afraid of the Zika virus, this is what CDC Director Dr. Tom Frieden had to say.
In the case of Zika, the real tragedy is a family that's had a child with microcephaly, and we know that that is devastating, and I think that's what's driving the concern.
The degree of impact on the Olympics because of the Zika virus outbreak has yet to be seen. The deciding factors depend on the creation of a vaccination, whether the disease can be contained, and if scientists can learn more about the disease, mostly with regard to the ways that it is spread. This is Karina Hendren for the Global Current.
And finally, Troy Travato analyzes the rise of ISIS in Libya and its impact on Western interests.
This is an organisation that's losing territory, it's losing ground, it's, I think, increasingly losing anybody's sympathy, and this again shows what an appalling organisation we're up against.
The Islamic State has been suffering ongoing attacks by a U.S.-led coalition over some months. The current intelligence from various national cabinets seems to inform their nationals that ISIS is indeed losing ground and influence. While it may style itself as the Islamic State in Iraq and Syria, ISIS's leaders have sought refuge in Libya, according to the BBC. Due to its name, the situation is often underplayed in the opinions of most, unaware that ISIS has taken a decent portion of Libya's territory centered in Sirte and the surrounding area. This caused enough of a reaction among heads of governments that 22 states met in Rome to discuss how it can cause greater impact for regional politics around the Mediterranean. Furthermore, it seems that the divided nature of contemporary Libyan politics has made it near impossible to force the self-proclaimed caliphate into a surrender. Were individuals that had no military training, the threat would be relatively less imminent. However, the intelligence personnel within Libya have claimed that among the Tunisians, Egyptians, and Sudanese, there has been a large presence of Iraqis, reports the BBC. In fact, the most worrying statement was that the Iraqi men have received training in the army under the Saddam Hussein regime of the 1990s. Those fighting for a contiguous and capable Libyan state have claimed that their forces cannot defeat ISIS alone. The BBC reported that individuals such as Commander Mohammed al-Baoudi of Libya has asked for NATO intervention. Though there previously existed a program in the form of airstrikes, the commander would welcome bolder action. Furthermore, a proposal which will comprise of Italians, Britons, and French has yet to be agreed upon.
What is happening, because that sanctuary exists, ISIS has been able to expand into 9 other countries. The largest expansion has taken place in Libya. We have anecdotal reports now saying that there are as many as 10,000 fighters there. We have to confirm those reports through intelligence sources.
Libya, located roughly 100 miles away from the Italian island of Lampedusa, raises great concern for Rome and how it will fulfill its obligations to protect its citizens. According to the leader himself, Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi, the caliphate within 5 years seeks to reclaim the territory once claimed by the Islamic Empire during its golden age. Not only would that include the entirety of the Middle East, North Africa, Spain, and Portugal, the ISIS propaganda machine makes claims that they will capture Rome to destroy the cross, a term used in the Quran to describe the end times. ISIS, through its stronghold within central Libya and the power vacuum which exists there, poses an immense threat to Western interests and security. While the leaders boast that they have been successful in Iraq and Syria, much action has not been afforded to areas of conflict around Sirte. For the Global Current, this is Troy Travato.
Finally this morning, the Global Current sits down with Dr. Philip Kayal, Professor Emeritus at Seton Hall University, on the recent premiere of his documentary, 1001 Journeys, The Arab American Experience.
Good morning, Global Current listeners. This is Dylan Ashdown, a guest contributor for the Global Current, here with Philip Kayal. Dr. Kayal is a professor emeritus here at Seton Hall, and we are going to be talking about a film project that he has worked on. So, Dr. Kayal, could you give me a very brief introduction to the film project that premiered here at Seton Hall?
Well, Abe Casbo, the producer, was actually a graduate of Seton Hall Political Science and the MPA program, and he was a student of mine.
Oh, great.
And I discovered that he was actually Syrian American like I am, and that he actually is an immigrant as well. So we started to become friends and share stories. And then all the Middle East conflicts and what have you made us realize we're constantly being asked questions, and they're mostly stereotypical things. So we said we have to do something about this. And that was one of the reasons that the film got going. There was also always the series on PBS on different ethnic groups, and we thought it would be really great to have an Arab one, since why not? It was time for this to happen, and we took the bull by the horns.
Right. Can you tell me how you came up with the title for your film?
Abe actually did, because 1001 is from Aladdin, I think, or one of those shows, and that's all I can tell you. I really don't know. So Abe just said that sounds like a great way of getting something that people know already about the Middle East. They have this image of 1001, whatever it was in the, I think it was Aladdin, but I'm not sure.
Right, and it's 1001 Arab Journeys, correct?
Yes.
Yep. Great. So for you and Abe, I know you can't speak for Abe, but what would you consider to be the most difficult aspect of making this film?
Well, you had to define what the subject would consist of, since there are as you see in the film, at least 20 Arab American ethnic groups, and some of them are brand new, some of them are older, some of them are Christian, some of them are Muslim. So we had to bridge all these gaps and not offend anyone,
Right.
and be very selective on who we're going to include, because we only had an hour and a half. So that was an organizational problem. The second biggest problem, of course, was fundraising. Since Arabs are not united, it's an American concept that there's something called the Arab world, but that's not to say that everybody is agreeable with one another. So you had to explain to people why are we including this or not including that, and that was another challenge. But we overcame it.
That's great. And so I saw the film. It was wonderful. It really did kind of discuss the whole journey of Arab Americans immigrating, or Arabs immigrating to America and becoming Arab Americans. And during the Q&A, there was a man that stood up and he said out loud to you and Abe, "I never felt as proud to be Arab as I am today." Is that kind of the response that you've been looking for from people seeing the film?
It's not the response we were looking for, but it's the response we get always wherever we show the film. It seems to be more powerful than we imagined. I think the community was waiting forever for this moment where they could see themselves on television reflected correctly. So we were very moved by that, and that wasn't the objective. The objective was to educate the community, but the becoming proud or prouder was a wonderful latent effect.
No, I thought it was wonderful. And on my mom's side of the family, I am Lebanese American, actually. And so when I found out that I was going to be able to come and see the film, I know it brought my family members together, and it led to phone calls with my grandparents talking about my heritage. And I thought that was a really great thing, as I hadn't even seen the film yet, but already it was getting me to learn a little bit more about my heritage and my family. And I just thought that was a really wonderful thing. And that's why that question really, really stuck with me when I heard it during Q&A.
Well, that's very, very beautiful to hear from you. I didn't realize you were Lebanese.
Yes, sir. You interviewed a lot of different people in this film, such as Jamie Farr, who was one of my favorite actors of all time from MASH. You know, the Lebanese guy, which is great. My mom and I would watch MASH when I was a little kid, and we'd always just watch Jamie Farr because he's a Lebanese guy. And he looked like us. It was great. And so I was just curious how you chose the people to interview during this film. How did those people come about?
That's a good question. Abe Casbo actually decided who to interview, but it was also the availability of people, and we wanted to be inclusive, so we have Christians, Muslims, Palestinians, Syrians, Lebanese, etc., to make sure that we covered as many different segments of the population as possible. We don't have Saudis, unfortunately, or anybody of Egyptian. There wasn't too much reference to that. But that's also because they're kind of new here and smaller in population, and we don't really have any information on them or even contacts in those communities. So we went with the most popular people, Helen Thomas, etc., Ralph Nader, all the well-known people that Americans would be able to say, "Oh, I didn't know he or she was an Arab," and that's how we ended up with the groups that were interviewed.
How long did it take to make this film? If you could expand on how long in terms of days and months, but also how many hours of footage did you guys record?
Oh, my God, it technically took 7 years, although to me it seems more like 5 or 6, but Abe started 7 years ago. And thousands of hours, and again, Abe was doing more of that than I was, because you had to travel, you had to set up interviews, and we ended up having to re-interview virtually everyone for quality purposes, and we lost some of the tapes, some of the interviews. So it was a very labor-intensive activity, and in that sense became very expensive in that you had to have cameramen, transcript people, the screenwriters, the editors, and it went on and on and on.
Now, this was, I believe it was Abe's first film. This is also your first film as well?
Yes, I'm a college professor, not a filmmaker. And Abe is an entrepreneur, though. He has a business that kind of does everything, like advise people on video images and how to appear on the web and all that. So he's not new to this, although he never made a film.
Right. What was your favorite moment through making this film? Do you have one? You mentioned that it took over 7 years to film, so I bet there was lots of great moments and a lot of really bad moments. But could you maybe mention one moment that really stands out to you, for good or bad?
Well, it's a difficult question to answer because I wasn't involved in the filming of other people, except Masoon, the comedian, the Palestinian woman comedian who was interviewed in my house. So I have no great moments. If you ask me what was my favorite interview in the film, I would say it was Jack Shaheen, the journalist, who wrote a wonderful book called Real, R-E-E-L, Bad Arabs. And he took apart all the ways that Arabs, were depicted in Hollywood over the last literally 50 years. And it's a masterpiece of research. So that was my favorite interview. Although everyone really had something to say that was unique and distinct from the other, and it held together beautifully the flow between the people interviewed.
I think it did too. Okay. So what would you tell a young Arab American who wanted to learn a little bit more about their heritage?
Well, to learn about their heritage, there's so many bibliographic references in libraries, etc., that would give them the factual information that they need. The literature has expanded exponentially in the last 25 years. I would also suggest that they join some Arab American organization, whether it's a secular one, political, or a religious one, their local Syrian, Lebanese, Christian, or Egyptian church. They need to network with other Arab Americans, especially in their own age cohort, so that they can see they are not alone. Other kids are proud, and they should be proud because there's a glorious history of Arab culture in the world. And if they have informal social networks, that will help sustain their newfound interest in their heritage.
Right, that's great. And so I like that you mentioned being proud of your heritage. Recently going on in the news and in the media today, you see a lot of anti-Arab rhetoric without trying to come across too strong. And so I feel that a lot of times it's hard to be proud to be an Arab American. I was just curious what your thoughts were on the anti-Arab rhetoric that's been going on in the media and from certain politicians lately.
Well, it's very interesting because even being aware of being an Arab American is a new concept. 25 years ago, people would have identified with their specific nationality, Syrian, Lebanese, etc. Then because of the way the media constructed reality, the narratives they started to use, where Arab became prominent, the next generation, the fourth generation, the kids now, can actually use the word Arab because it's what is expected of you. It's okay to identify as an Arab. In Arabic, if I asked you who you were, a person would say Ibn Arab, but in English they would have said, "Oh, I'm Syrian." See, it's fascinating. So Arab consciousness is actually a new thing that came from having a common enemy, namely the press and namely the conflicts in the Middle East. You have to start responding within the categories that society set up. So believe it or not, these conflicts have produced an Arab American community. So all the national organizations have the word Arab in them. The Arab American Institute, the Anti-Defamation League, etc. They're all Arab-oriented.
Right, that's great. You're so knowledgeable about this, and I love this. Just a couple more questions about the film, and we are going to start wrapping up. I was just curious what the plan is for the film now. Are there any distribution plans, or where do you go from here?
Well, you can purchase the film online, although it'll take a few weeks yet before it's produced on a Blu-ray DVD. PBS, we are negotiating with PBS now to see if they will pick it up on one of their stations, and we got some good feedback from Chicago. So that is one national distribution method. The next would be libraries and particular subject matters like sociology departments, et cetera, at schools that deal with ethnicity, assimilation, and things of that nature.
Right. As I was watching this, I realized that it seemed like so many of the videos that I'd seen about other ethnicities in my history classes. You always see the Irish journey or the story of, when you talk about Southern America, the story of Mexican immigration. And the entire time I'm watching this, I'm thinking this would be a perfect piece for either a PBS special or for a classroom learning. It was that good of a film and that educational.
Many people say that this is perfect for PBS. They actually accepted the film 2 years ago, but we weren't ready. So we are right now, as we speak, renegotiating with PBS. So keep your fingers crossed. It would be such an honor and so beneficial. Americans would finally get a large population of Americans would get a real film on the community.
Right, and it just seemed, as I was watching it, I was thinking, I could send this to my grandparents, or I could send this to the church that my grandparents attend. That's an Arab American church, Maronite Catholic. Excuse me.
So you're
church.
Maronites, yeah.
Yes.
Okay, that is exactly what we want. We want people to wake up and come out of the woodwork and say, "Oh my God, this is us!" And look, we're normal, we're healthy, we're responsible, we're Americans, and let everybody know this. Yeah, we that's what our goal is. The secondary goal is to educate the community and get them to buy it, to show their children and grandchildren so they can understand their heritage.
So I'm just curious if there are plans for a second film. I know this one took 7 years. Do you think you guys would spend another 7 years making a second film?
Abe has other plans for art incubators. I think he wants to do an Arab American art incubation. Incubator, I don't know what the word is. Mm-hmm. You have the West Orange Art Incubator on the art level, but not necessarily a film. If we had it to do over again and we had tons of money and time, we would have done Syrian Lebanese as one unit and everybody else as another.
Right.
But that would be a 15-hour project. So, but it's done, and we're moving on.
There was some focus on Syrian Lebanese throughout the film, and I was just curious, is that because of your and Abe's heritage, or is that just kind of how it came about?
Well, that's the historical reality. The Syrian Lebanese Christians were the first, and they're the most numerous and populous. And that's the people the Arabs that Americans know, are Syrian Lebanese, from Danny Thomas to Dr. DeBakey and all that. But that's the only thing I can say. It was the logical way of doing it.
Great. Well, Dr. Kayal, that is all the time that we have today. Thank you so much for calling in to the Global Current. We were completely honored to have you. Thank you so much for your time.
A pleasure to be here.
Our guest this morning has been Philip Kayal, Professor Emeritus at Seton Hall University. He has been talking about his film project, 1001 Journeys Arab American Experience. It discussed how the story of Arab Americans coming into America is just the same as other groups such as Irish Americans. This has been Dylan Ashdown, a guest reporter for the Global Current.
Thank you for tuning in to this week's episode of the Global Current. Follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube.
I'm Joshua Siegel.
And I'm Megan Ferguson. We'll see you next week.
The Global Current is brought to you by the School of Diplomacy and International Relations at Seton Hall University. Our executive producer is Alicia Sharabali. Our associate producer is Bill Golda. Our news editor is John Jadot, and our analysis editor is Blythe Brady. Our interview segment is produced by Emily Lividay. The Global Current theme song is Acid Jazz by Kevin MacLeod. You've been listening to The Global Current on WSOU 89.5 FM, Seton Hall's Pirate Radio.